Before the shofar blast rang through my ears this year on Rosh Hashanah, calling me to take a good hard look at my life, I was already standing at the foot of Mount Sinai, ready to accept the challenge. This past summer, I embarked on an experience that took me to the very core of my spiritual being, cracked open my heart, and brought me face to face with my identity in a new way. My inner voice spoke loudly and clearly. All I needed to do was listen. When I pulled into the Davening Prayer Leadership Training Institute at Isabella Friedman Retreat Center in Falls Village, Connecticut, I realized that the name Retreat Center had been misleading. This wasn't a hotel or a convention center, but a beautiful campsite with an organic farm, trails, and a lake. Having grown up a Vermonter, I could camp, but it just wasn't what I had packed for. I brought dresses, fancy jewelry, shoes, and even a hairdryer. I had my iPad, my cell phone, and books I thought I would read. When I asked for a key to my room, the gentleman at registration said, "We work on the honor system here. There are no keys. Isabella Friedman is a beautiful, wonderful place where nothing bad ever happens." I was startled and jaded, and I thought, okay, that sounds crazy. I'll go with it, but doesn't this guy realize we live in the 21st century? I thought about these words as I walked out of the main building at the exact time the sky opened up and it began to pour. There I was, completely unprepared to head to my cabin on the other side of the lake. Wet and feeling silly, I phoned my husband to send my backpacks, Crocs, and Tevas in an overnight package. Little did I know, the only things I really needed, I already carried with me at all times. It would have been completely impossible to have left home without them. All I really needed on this journey was an open mind and an open heart. Throughout my life, I felt compelled to explore my leadership abilities as a cantor. In the Jewish religion, the cantor is responsible for leading all musical aspects of prayer. And the list of skills and proficiencies needed is such that most training programs require 4 to 5 years. A cantor is a teacher, a singer, a music director, an advisor, and a mentor, all of which I am at my role at St. Luke's. The major leap for me was to deepen these skills in a Jewish setting. Upon arriving at the Institute, something inside me demanded immediate attention. The past, present, and future called upon me to explore and honor my Judaism within the context of my life. This included acknowledging painful and difficult aspects of my story and putting to words the profound ways in which these circumstances have influenced my perspective. In 1938, my Opa, my grandfather, Walter Gardner, was riding his motorbike in Bonsdorf, Germany, when a group of Nazis came out of a meeting in a nearby building and stretched out side by side across the entire road, making it impossible for him to proceed. As he approached the blockade, he realized that stopping wasn't an option he could consider. His only choice was to hit the gas on his bike and pray that they wouldn't be able to come after him. He braced himself, sped up, and the line broke. He never looked back. Shortly thereafter, a former friend of his who had become a Nazi told him, "Walter, you need to leave. Things are going to get a whole lot worse." This was his warning. He was sufficiently concerned by these encounters that he made arrangements to be sponsored to come to America. Unfortunately, at the time, he was unable to convince his parents and his 2 brothers to leave with him. They owned a farm, and they had responsibilities to their land and their animals. They had too much to lose, and they didn't realize just how far Hitler intended to go until it was too late. All of them were murdered in the Holocaust because they were Jewish, and I can't stop thinking it could have been me. But hine me, Here I am. I was born in Rutland, Vermont, and given the Hebrew name Chava Yehudit. My parents are both Jewish, and they raised me to know, love, and cherish my religion. I attended synagogue, became a bat mitzvah, and took an active role in my religious community. We didn't speak often of my family's painful past, but it was always present, just beneath the surface. It was a story that was all too familiar for many Jewish families who immigrated to America at that time. Tikkun Olam, Hebrew for repairing the world, was emphasized in my family values, as well as taking absolutely nothing for granted. How could we? My Opa lost everyone and everything, yet he survived and continued moving forward. He couldn't dwell on the past, but his experience shifted the priorities in my family forever. We held tightly to each other, both as family and as a Jewish people, and everything else was somehow less relevant. I attended public school, where I was one of the only Jewish people in my classes. My school district never observed a single Jewish holiday, yet it was important to my family that we celebrate the holidays together in synagogue. Being physically present as part of our Jewish community was of utmost importance. Therefore, by the time December arrived, I usually missed 2 days of school for Rosh Hashanah, 1 for Yom Kippur, 2 for Sukkot, and 1 for Simchat Torah. I never missed school for Hanukkah though, which may come as a surprise. Hanukkah isn't as important as the other major holidays. I can still remember a teacher's reaction when I handed her a note from my parents. Rolling her eyes, she said, "Another Jewish holiday? Really?" I even remember feeling guilty that she had to prepare the assignments ahead of time just for me. And it was the same year after year after year. Growing up in Vermont, I was always aware of being a minority. Nonetheless, I will never forget when I first learned that there had been places in my beautiful home state that not that long ago wouldn't have allowed me to walk through the door because I'm Jewish. It wasn't until I was looking for a wedding venue 10 years ago that my father suggested we try and find a place that had always been friendly to Jews. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying, but then he explained the meaning of the word restricted, which meant that Jews were not allowed. All over the country, and particularly in Fairfield County, less than a generation ago, many social clubs, hotels, and establishments were restricted. These weren't highly publicized restrictions posted on the front door. They were more of an unspoken agreement. Jews weren't welcome, and Jews weren't allowed. In the last few decades, great strides have been made in lifting these limitations, which is a great place to start. But changing a mindset often takes persistence and perseverance over time. It can be uncomfortable and daunting to seek truth and equality beyond common assumption and years of intolerance. The unknown isn't always scary if you're open and willing to learn about the things you don't know. Unfortunately, when you're different from the majority, people often assume that they know you because they've met someone like you. This thought process feeds stereotypes, and it's the breeding ground for prejudice. I've encountered prejudicial comments and phrases against Jews that have managed to work their way into a generally unchallenged subtext of American culture. In casual conversation, I've heard people say, "He Jewed me down," or "I got Jewed," using the word Jew as a verb. In this context, this refers to a particularly negative stereotype that Jews are shrewd negotiators who pay as little as possible for everything, or also implying that Jews cheat others out of their fair share. This phrase is derived from the same propaganda that fueled Hitler's rise to power in Nazi Germany, but somehow, both the phrase and sentiment still remain, and they really bother me. My grandfather's family had such an ingrained work ethic that they remained in Germany out of an obligation to their land and the lives they had built for themselves. They didn't Jew anyone, and they ended up paying the ultimate price. Sometimes, acknowledging the influence of the past is particularly painful, especially when it carries over into the present. Hitler might seem like a long time ago, but while my heart opened this summer, news of the escalating conflict in Israel and Palestine, coinciding with anti-Semitic hate crimes in Paris, France, Wuppertal, Germany, and the Netherlands, devastated me. In 2014, people were yelling on the streets of France, "Destroy the Zionist Jews. Count them and kill them to the very last one." And in Berlin, "Hamas, Hamas, Jews to the gas." And just this week, a Jewish fraternity at Emory University was vandalized with swastikas immediately following Yom Kippur, one of the holiest days in Judaism. The Anti-Defamation League released the results of a worldwide study in May of 2014 that found that anti-Semitism, or the hatred of Jewish people, has risen to an alarming statistic of more than 1 in 4 people worldwide. I'm both saddened and frightened that people I have never even met could hate me so much that they would like to see me dead. This is scary stuff, and I don't understand this kind of hatred at all. As I sat with my eyes closed during a morning prayer service this summer, I experienced a deeply profound presence in the room. I felt the overwhelming sensation that my family, who never made it out of Germany, was surrounding me. They were there to deliver a message still ringing in my heart. Need you. The tears had started to fall. I had to get up. I had to leave the room. My chest was tight and I couldn't breathe. This was certainly a call to action from the innermost places of my being, but to do what? How was I supposed to serve? What could I possibly do to make a difference? Then it came to me. I could get up and I could speak to you. It's important to realize that it can be difficult to walk proudly and strongly in an identity that can be polarizing. In telling my story and revealing wounds of the past, I hope to encourage you to think before you say or do something that could be misinformed, misinterpreted, or even offensive toward Jewish people. I also urge you to consider the impact of your words and actions on all those around you. Until we can be honest with one another about our perspectives, it can be challenging to build a culture of inclusion. None of us can completely leave behind our influences, the stories we're told, our DNA, or our communities, and nor should we. But what we can do is build relationships with one another. Earlier I mentioned Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. We begin to truly do this work when we allow relationships with real people to have more impact in forming our thoughts and ideas than any other form of secondhand information or media. We need to be actively engaged with one another so that we can seek answers, uncover the truth, and find ourselves in the process. Changing your mind isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of an open mind. Develop loyalty and kindness that supersedes any radical or singular process of thought, and embrace humanity. Your generation holds the power to stomp out bigotry and hatred. To move forward together, we need to educate one another. We need to ask questions and then listen to the answers. We all have interests, passions, and beliefs lying dormant within us. For some, they're recognizable and accessible. For others, There are aspects of our identity that we want to know more about, but they may contain painful truths, disappointment, or things we just aren't ready to feel. Take the risk to explore that part of your life that may be calling for attention, even if it seems challenging. Figure out what really makes you, you. This summer, at the beautiful, wonderful place where nothing bad ever happens, I found myself feeling safe enough to peel back some of my own layers. I also contemplated why this magical place could exist in a little bubble in the woods of Connecticut, but not in the world we live in today. It continued to rain throughout my entire stay, but I decided not to fight with nature. I wore my hair curly, put on my flip-flops, and went outside to dance in the puddles. I was prepared for the work ahead, and I affirmed something about myself that I've known all along. I love being Jewish. Hineni, here I am. Thank you.